Rumours are abound that none other than Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man will meet in 2026's Avengers Secret Wars. My hope is that it's not just a small scene where the two meet and exchange a couple of words.
I'm not gonna let that happen.
I want at least the same level of interactions as what the Spider-Men enjoyed in No Way Home.
Oh boy, yeah.
Ideally, I'd like to see them get a full subplot in the movie. I mean, why not? If you're doing a Marvel movie multiverse storyline, outside of the MCU leads, both these guys are the candidates that make the most sense. Their movies and the worlds that they inhabited set the standard for so much of the MCU. They were each iconic in their own way, and fans are still chomping at the bit to see them again, as evident by that juicy Deadpool announcement video and the release of No Way Home.
Oh, Rosie, I love this boy.
One thing I've criticised about the so-called multiverse saga is how disjointed it has been so far.
You're so full of shit.
But this little crossover team-up has actually been well seeded. We've already reintroduced Tugboat in Spider-Man No Way Home, and Wolverine is making his unexpected return in Deadpool 3, invading the movie so hard that it's probably going to have his name in the title. I can't wait for the titles to be revealed as Deadpool and Hawkeye or something, and people come back to this video to comment, "This didn't age well, haha, you couldn't predict the future and the nature of time itself, you fucking idiot. Everything you speculate, no matter how small, has to be right, or you will be shamed, haha." Basically, by the time we come to Secret Wars, Spidey and Wolverine will each have had a multiverse team-up movie to reacquaint the audience. Going into Secret Wars, they are the pairing that would make the most sense to lead that contingent of the plot.
How's your throwing arm?
No! And then from these guys, you could bring in a whole host of other classic legacy Marvel characters. But more on that in a bit. Their personalities would make for some hilarious exchanges.
You'll get your rent when you fix this damn door!
You're pretty strong for a scrawny kid.
Their powers would perfectly complement each other in a collaborative fight against Kang's forces. Seeing 2000 Spider-Man with, well, the one and only Wolverine since the 2000s would be nothing short of epic. Alright. If Secret Wars is going to be a huge event involving close to 3 decades of Marvel movies, then I think giving Wolverine and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man the spotlight for one of the many plot strands feels so right. Would you be hyped to see this classic Marvel duo on screen? Who else would you like to see Tobey and Hugh interact with? Let me know in the comments below.
Back to formula.
These two teaming up has been on the cards for way longer than you might have realised. Spider-Man pops up in a DVD Easter egg from the original X-Men movie. Then, in 2002 Spider-Man, Jackman was actually set for a small cameo appearance, but get this, the filmmakers couldn't wrangle his costume in time, and so it was scrapped, just like that. What a different world we'd be in had that come to pass. Whilst the cameo wasn't part of any meaningful plan, I'm sure the fans would have no doubt pushed for a proper crossover down the line if they had seen these giants share the screen all the way back in 2002.
Now save it.
Fox did collaborate with Sony very lightly in 2014 with a Spider-Man X-Men crossover, actually having a post-credit scene in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 being a scene from the upcoming Days of Future Past. Weird, right? Got to be one of the strangest post-credit scenes that never gets talked about. There's one key thing I want from this duo. I think people are going to disagree on this, but hear me out. They should have met before Secret Wars and have a long-standing rapport. In fact, both their universes should be revealed to be the same Marvel universe.
I don't believe this. I don't believe you.
I always loved the storytelling convention of having two characters meet for the first time in the audience's memory, yet the pair have a long storied history.
John?
It's a trick franchises like Indiana Jones and John Wick pull all the time. Rarely do these heroes meet characters for the first time. Often the banter and the interplay between them and the other respective characters is rooted in all the encounters they had before.
You working? Yeah.
It can be a really fun tool to get the audience up to speed, and it allows the scene to focus on the preeminent threat rather than worrying about establishing who they are to each other. These two characters are comic book movie legends, so I think it would feel appropriate to give them adventures and myths that we can only imagine in our heads.
I guess you haven't heard. I'm the sheriff around these parts.
Go fuck yourself.
I don't want this to overshadow the story. It should just inform the dynamic that they have and play into the fun. Think of the way Black Widow and Hawkeye shine a light on previous off-screen adventures. It also allows the writer to bump the audience up to speed. Hawkeye and Black Widow don't get a whole lot of screen time before the third act of the Avengers, but we immediately get their relationship because they are depicted as long-time firm friends.
Just like Budapest all over again! You and I remember Budapest very differently.
I think by having some Budapest-esque mentions, you define something between these characters that you can dig right into and would make them seem interesting together. Sure, it would be fun to have Tobey question Wolverine's claws.
You can't do that, huh?
No. Or for Jackman to assume Spider-Man is some kind of mutant.
What's a Magneto?
Or for the pair to come to blows, you know, punch for a bit and then they're mates. But I think we've all seen that movie in some form already. Go the John Wick route. Allow the story to do that magical thing where we can leave the theatre pumped up thinking about all the amazing adventures they had together in their own Marvel universe.
Statue of Liberty was a long time ago, Charles, a long time.
Metatextually, it would be nice to play off all the times the pair nearly crossed over in the first place. It would be saying to the audience that these comic book movies we got long before the concept of a cinematic universe were a flourishing Marvel world all on their own. What if Spider-Man and Wolverine find themselves chucked into a confusing and unreal splintered reality thanks to Kang? The two end up facing each other, the audience has never seen this before and is waiting with bated breath to find out what they're going to say to each other. Only for the pair to be relieved to see each other, where they're like, what? And then they reveal that they're friends who have had past adventures together and they bicker in a friendly, glib way. Logan, of course, thinks Spider-Man is a massive dork, and Spidey could find a lot of amusement in the fact that even far from home, Logan is still just as gruff as ever. Their sarcasm and witticisms from the previous movies show that this will be so much fun to see.
I guess you're a late bloomer.
I also think if you're going to have both of these characters meet all kinds of MCU characters in Secret Wars, then it would be a nice way to ground them. All these MCU characters are the strange multiverse weirdos. Spider-Man? Oh, me and Spider-Man go way back. Unfortunately. It disappointed me somewhat to hear Tobey ask who the Avengers were, because it confirms to me that in his world they never existed. So I think it would be cool to instead suggest that Tobey's Marvel world featured the characters from the MCU that we haven't quite dug into just yet. In place of the Avengers, Tobey met and battled with the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Hulk and Daredevil. If Tobey and Hugh bump into original recipe Captain America, they should totally mistake him for Johnny Storm, a nice little setup for the Portal style scene later on in the movie, where in the 2000s FF come through. This duo could spearhead all of those characters folding in, and having them all know each other would make it easier to draw a line between the MCU Phase 6 roster and the Legacy roster. The director for Secret Wars has not yet been confirmed, but whoever it ends up being, I hope they really channel the styles of these older characters rather than just having them pop up. One of my gripes with No Way Home is that the film never evoked the cinematography or editing styles of either Tobey or Andrew's movies.
You're a dick.
Now I know people will comment to tell me that's because it was in Tom Holland's world, but I always think that's a lazy excuse, I've got to admit.
Gonna cry?
Fans love the fight scenes and swinging scenes from both these examples. Why couldn't we get little snippets of those styles interspersed amongst the Holland aesthetic? I don't think bringing back these characters should be just about the story and the dialogue, it should be a celebration of the movies that got us to the MCU in the first place. Imagine if we get the visceral thrills of seeing Spider-Man and Wolverine fighting like this again. The Raimi Spider-Man films nailed Spider-Man's fighting style and packed a punch from the very beginning. Wolverine has passed through several directors and his fight scenes have never been as consistent. Sometimes he kicks ass and it looks great, and other times he's felt quite immobile and stilted compared to his comic book counterpart. It will be interesting to see how Sean Levy depicts Wolverine in Deadpool 3. My biggest hope is we lean more into his leaps and acrobatics, things we got a little bit more of towards the end of his original Fox tenure. One of the things I think sucked about bringing all the heroes together in Endgame is they all collectively face Thanos, plus his random assortment of grey alien Chitauri enemies. I hope Secret Wars brings back villains too. Imagine a tag team battle of these guys versus Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin and Liev Schreiber's Sabretooth. Now that would be a battle for the ages. Imagine Tobey ending up in his trademark battered suit because Sabretooth tears it to shreds. Imagine seeing Wolverine take one of those pumpkin bombs that erode you to nothing but a skeleton, and seeing Gobby shocked as the mutant regrows his entire body back.
Holy shit.
Of course, whilst Tobey's iconic costume needs no tweaks whatsoever, Wolverine has always been edging us with a truly accurate comic book style for years.
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
Yes, actually. I would be shocked if we don't see him in the yellow outfit in Deadpool 3, meaning these two will meet in both of their iconic looks. That will be incredibly surreal, but also incredibly awesome.
I don't know, I guess I've become something of an icon.
So you were always an asshole.
And imagine, just imagine if we actually get to hear their respective scores used properly in the movie. The Danny Elfman theme needs no introduction, but the John Ottman X-Men theme is sorely underrated. I'd love to hear a medley of the two when these guys throw down. The lack of Raimi's score in No Way Home was a real shame. Yes, I know it played in a couple of tiny instances, but I'm talking about a proper rousing moment. I feel like it's a no-brainer. Utilising their themes is just as important as having them come back and say one-liners.
Trying to do better.
The whole world's gonna hell, you just gonna sit there?
If Marvel are going to try and top Infinity War and Endgame, not necessarily in terms of scale but storytelling quality, then I want to see this long-held pipe dream come to fruition. Of course, there is one more pivotal early Marvel superhero that deserves to join this duo, but with a reboot stuck in development hell, it seems unlikely he'll make this a perfect Marvel trinity. A Blade Trinity.
Hey, Blade!
A big thank you to my full fat tier patron, Dr. Chike. If you'd like to donate money to my Patreon, you can find me at patreon.com/fullfatvideos. If you'd like to find me on Instagram, you can find me at full_fat_videos. And if you'd like to find me on Twitter, you can find me at fullfatvideos.